as someone who observes and lives in South Africa, I think we need to make a distinction between the declared and the manifest objectives that people have. The declared objectives is what we get in the business press, is what we get from people who sit in fora and tell us what they believe. Manifest objectives is what ordinary people are going to judge you on, which is the historical record. So I don't believe that when people talk about this as a political project and the interest of justice, that their actions back up that this is just a political project. I think it's also a criminal and self-enriching project. So I no longer believe that history is made by individuals. So this pill that people swallowed in the 1990s, that Nelson Mandela woke up one day in his cell in 1989 and said, let's change this country. That's not the case. It's not the case that what just happened in Zimbabwe either. Multinational interests drive the decisions and actions of people, even on the ground. And that relationship between government and business is a complex dance. So I would argue that if we go back in history in this country over the last 23 years, there is very little evidence for people sitting on the ground that business is interested in redressing. They have a truckload of evidence to the contrary. And they have it in those studies from the late 1990s where law graduates would complain that they weren't being hired, despite their marks out of UCT's law school, when it was still accredited, over their counterparts who got lower marks on a racialized paradigm. That black top graduates were not being partner hired and had to serve longer in pupillage and articles than white graduates with lower marks. The accountants complained about the same thing for years. So that is the record that black professionals have judged South Africa on and South African business on. They're judging South African black business on the same tokens. Who gets hired? It is not necessarily the person who's best fit for the job. It is the person who's going to do what is being tasked or touted as a political project. So when we look at contemporary South Africa's medium-term and longer-term future, unlike Kuseni, I don't have this positive outlook in the short-term future. I think the short-term future is messy, it's awful, it's disastrous. But precisely the dynamics of a young country, where the majority of people who live here under 35, means that come 2019, it is the last grandstand of the old men in this country. They don't have beyond 2019. So regardless of whether that faction, the NDZ faction, if you think of that as a faction, wins in 2019, 2024, which is the medium term, looks very different. And we've learned this lesson in 2016, when urban dwellers in a very fast urbanizing country taught the governing party a vicious lesson in at least 3 of the metropoles. By 2040, which is when the 2030 goals have already failed, and the 2063 goals that the AU seems to want to implement.
Hopefully we're not here at that point.
No. We'll be here.
I, Mr. Fick.
I will be here. If I look, my father's 87. I don't know how old you are. But, and how old your father is. My sense is I'm around, so I can't plan for a world in which I'm not.
Yeah.
I have to plan for my old age and think about what are these young people. And this is my last point here. Who are we listening to? Because it's not always clear that we're listening to the right people. We often speak in echo chambers, which explains what went wrong in the 1990s. The people in this country who had power listened inside echo chambers to other people who had power and weren't paying attention to those protests by millions of poor people that started in 1995 and thought, those are just horns blowing outside the wall. Well, that's what the people of Jericho thought, and look at them now. They're still listening only to the inside of the walls and not the outside. And I think what those young people in 2015 indicated to South Africans was time is up. Now the question is, who do you listen to? Do you listen to those who are behind the criminal project? Do you listen to those who facilitated a criminal project for a very long time? Or do you listen to the people who will make up the majority of the population, the market, the professionals, who have been complaining for 23 years that things are not going their way? And that, I think, is crucial because, again, a warning was sounded. The US Army Engineering Corps sent somebody to South Africa who looked at ESCOM and warned his clients, don't touch that with a barge pole. But did we listen to him? No. We listened to the faction that would give us the interest, that would make the money, which explains why McKinsey is and was in the position that it is, among many other people for whom the ESCO domino race has not finished yet. Those dominoes are continuing to fall as these hearings in Parliament continue.